Greetings, book nerds. My name is Genevieve, and this is Genevieve's Reading. I am woefully behind on all of my goals to update people about what I'm reading, and that's because I'm reading so much that it's hard to keep up with everything. And I've even recorded some videos that I just haven't released because they just feel out of date or like redundant in some way. So I'm kind of doing a full reset of what it is I want to do with this little platform, because why not? I don't know, like reset, redo, reduce, reuse, recycle. I have no idea. we're just feeling it out here, you know. This is fun and I enjoy doing it, so I hope you enjoy this wild little journey with me. And if you do, please like and subscribe, as everyone asks to do on the YouTubes. I really appreciate it. I'm just a tiny little creator and it's fun to connect with people about books. So on with the books. I'm going to do a couple of things in one video and see how that goes. I want to talk about what I read in April. And I want to talk about what I got from Book of the Month this month, what I got for May. I am actually going to read all of them again. I'm allowing myself to DNF the ones that are really not working for me, but I have to at least try it. So, and not all of the Book of the Month books I'm getting through Book of the Month, because they're now doing between 5 and 7 picks. And frankly, I don't want to open up a third account, and I don't mind reading some of these on my e-reader or getting them from the library, etc. So there we are. Before we get started, I want to do my little shout out about public libraries. This is just like something I want to do because I feel like I don't see it enough, and maybe it's out there, maybe people are talking about it, but I don't hear it enough. My public library, which is the Carnegie Public Library, is absolutely incredible. And like I just said, when it comes to reading for different challenges, read-alongs, readathons, buddy reads, book clubs, I do all of that, and I cannot, one, house all of those books inside of my house, nor two, want to do that. And so I use Libby with Carnegie Public Library, and it is absolutely amazing. So if you're not already using the Libby app, I'm sure most people that watch this are, I'm assuming it's only available in the United States and Canada. I really don't know. I just know what works for me living in the US right now. It's incredible. And I do actually have a few more library cards there. I have 3 more. But honestly, I get most of what I need through Carnegie Public Library. Your library in general is not just for, books. You can get so many other things there, including like renting movies, and my Carnegie Public Library also allows you to rent instruments. So just, think before you buy. Like, the library is a great place for me to try a lot of stuff, especially when I'm listening to Book Talk, etc. And they are hard selling some of these books to me. I always try them in the library first, before I decide to invest, even buying them on Kindle, right? So just give it a thought, give it a peruse. I've heard some people say that they don't like to read used books. I personally don't understand that. Like, I cannot relate to that feeling. I grew up with used books, so can't relate to that. But if that is you, then use digital books. That way there's no such thing as it being used, right? Whether that's audio or e-reader. So that's my little plug for libraries, and specifically Carnegie Library Pittsburgh. Now that things are opening up, it seems like they're doing a lot more in-person things too, which is pretty exciting. My dog Rip is definitely going to inject himself into this video, so let's be aware of that. That's going to happen. All right, on with the books. Do you want to come up here? Come on. Good boy. Yes. Okay, let's talk about the books. All right, so for April, I read a lot in April. I had a really aggressive TBR for April. So I'm just going to kind of run through these. I think I've talked about some of them already, but that's fine. The Unsinkable Greta James, that was a Book of the Month pick, and it was fine. I think more people are going to like this than I liked it, frankly. I've already seen some folks in some of the Discords that I'm in. They really, they related to it. I gave it 3 stars. This is by Jennifer E. Smith. It's about a woman who is a guitarist. She's a musician, and she is grieving the loss of her mother, and she has to go on this cruise with her father. What did not work for me in this book is that I felt like her character as this, like, you are so funny. Her character as this, like, indie rock star, it seemed like the stakes were never that high. Like, oh, she had to do all this stuff because she, was going to, like, lose her job or something, or would not be relevant. But it never actually felt that threat ever. I didn't feel that threat ever. And it seemed extremely, for what this was, I've read books like similar to this before. The stakes were just not that high for me ever. And so it never really felt that amazing. So 3 stars, because I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I've also read better books about grief, to be totally honest. Haven't I? Yes. I have the window open, so he's like, what's out the window? All right, The Anthropocene, reviewed by John Green. I gave it 4.5 stars to be cheeky, because if you read the book, you'll know why. This is great. This is a great series of essays. I highly recommend this book. At first, I thought it was a little pretentious, and then it kind of evolved and got way better. Okay, well, here we go. We all knew that was going to happen. We all knew that Rip was gonna inject himself into this, so it's fine. All right, so the Anthropocene reviewed. It's basically him looking at different things in his life and talking about his life, but by reviewing things that he either likes or dislikes. So things like sunsets, Dr. Pepper, Piggly Wiggly, like all of these different things that he's interacted with it within his life. Yeah, I thought it was great. I still think about it occasionally, which is interesting because I didn't think I would. I've never read a John Green book before. He's very thoughtful, but he's also, as somebody who lives with anxiety, sometimes his anxiety is like infectious and it's a little much sometimes. So I don't know if that matters to you. Parable of the Sower, Octavia Butler. I just want to say that, like, the loss of Octavia Butler is something that I still haven't recovered from, and I only started reading her after she'd passed. What an incredible, insightful, prescient writer. What a just fascinating human being that has put together these just not super grand stories, very group dynamic based books, but in these incredibly fantastic settings that are absolutely believable, right? Her apocalypse feels very believable to me. Parable of the Sower follows Lauren, who lives in a neighborhood in Los Angeles, sort of a gated community that is one of the last safe places in this region. And now that becomes unsafe and she has to travel. And it's about kind of the beginning of her religion that she's creating called Earthseed. So this is like the first of 2 books. So this is Parable of the Sower, and then there's Parable of the Talents. Parable of the Sower is also a story in the Bible as well that I was reading about in order to gain a little bit more context. God, Octavia Butler is just so fucking smart, and I just love her writing, and it's not too obtuse, but it's also really, really smart, but it's not so smart that it makes you feel like a moron, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes it's the prose is too much. She's not like that, so just loved it. I Must Betray You by Rita Sepetys. This is a Cold War book. Really great, fantastic. Can't recommend it more. If you like historical fiction, or if you don't know if you like historical fiction, maybe start with these. They're YA, so the reading level is a little less intense or less advanced than some other books that I think historical fiction gets a rap for being kind of boring. And she keeps it pretty... she keeps the story flowing. There's always something kind of going on, which I really appreciate. I'm going to read more Rita Sepetys books. She's a solid read. Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. This is part of my Stephen King read. It was good. There were some stories in particular, actually, that I really liked. Were The Jaunt. The Jaunt was wild. The Mist. The Mist is a great story. I actually reread it because I had already read it before it, and I reread parts of it. It is awesome. I mean, there's stuff in it that's kind of absurd, but like for the most part, I freaking love that story. For Owen, which is just this really beautiful, sentimental short story. Word Processor of the Gods, I really loved, and actually would totally want to watch a Black Mirror episode of Word Processor of the Gods. Survivor Type. I need to talk more about Survivor Type. Like, that story is dark. It's King taking a really horrible, awful character and putting him in this awful scenario, and he's just sitting around thinking about how terrible he is, but at the same time, like, doesn't realize how awful it's just the will to survive. It's wild. Uncle Otto's Truck was really cool. It has like Uncle Otto's Truck has Shawshank Redemption vibes, and not because it has anything to do with prison, more that it's this nostalgia romp kind of thing that King likes to do at times, that it has nothing to do with horror. To me, Stephen King is way more of a sci-fi writer, and this is his delightful, lovely sci-fi. So if you're not into the deep, dark, crusty horror, especially after, don't read Survivor Type if you don't like that, because that gets bleak. But Uncle Otto's Truck I found was like kind of more light and breezy and sweet, and I enjoyed that one. And The Reach. Ooh, yeah, The Reach. Oh, The Reach was probably my favorite of all of these, now that I'm thinking about it. Again, nostalgia. It's about a woman sort of thinking about her life. Very Maine. Just the most Maine story I've read of King's in a minute. So yeah, and then I went from this into It, and spoiler alert, I'm really loving it. Okay, Moonlight and the Pearler's Daughter. This is a arc from Simon & Schuster. Thank you, Simon & Schuster. It was fine. It was like historical and fictiony, and things happened, and there was a mystery, and I was like, okay. Fountains of Silence. I gave this 4 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed this one. Not as much as I Must Betray You, I'll be completely honest. I enjoyed I Must Betray You much more. Fountains of Silence takes place in Spain in the Franco dictatorship, and she just does this great job of like picking these times in history that we just don't think about, or at least aren't really discussed here in the United States. And I learned so much about Spanish history that I will carry with me. And I've actually had discussions with other people, including some folks from Spain, about, which were really amazing. So it just makes me want to learn more. So yeah, Rita Sepetys, really solid. Okay, Tell Me Everything, the story of a private investigation. Okay, so I felt super uncomfortable about this book. This is a book of the month book, and I read it to, get through it, I guess. Like, I don't know. I just had feelings about this. I was like, I don't know if this is like I would have handled some of this differently, but at the same time, how could I say that I'm not in this position? I don't know. It was very it was kind of complicated. Yeah. Next is A Memory Called Empire. Now, A Memory Called Empire is the first in the Tex Kalan series. I would recommend listening to this first. I would recommend listening to this because the language is wild. It's really wild. This is a great sci-fi book. I think if you are a sci-fi person, if you like learning about different worlds and learning about different cultures, this is like Ursula K. Le Guin light to me. I find Ursula K. Le Guin very dense and very hard to relate to and get into. I find her writing to be beautiful, but super dry at times. And it's like, okay, I get it. Like you're like the big badass of sci-fi. I respect the hell out of that, but also like, Jesus Christ, she really beats you over the head with a lot of big ideas. A Memory Called Empire has big ideas, has a big agenda, has a lot of things it wants to do, but it's not, I don't know, the journey is less intense. The journey is less, I didn't think I would like this book. I'll be totally honest. I didn't think I was going to like this. I thought that it was going to be really dry and too political, and I wound up just getting really wrapped up in the world. First of all, it's essentially about a woman who comes from the LaSalle station, which is sort of this outer, think of it as like somebody coming from like, the Marshall Islands, right? Like really far off, their own culture, sort of a remote place. And she comes to the Tex Kalan kind of culture place. You can tell I'm really good at describing this book. And in doing so, she has learned a lot about this culture because it's sort of like it's like the British of this world, if that makes sense. Like they go everywhere and they colonize everybody and they think very highly of themselves. And like the US, right? So it's all the same, sort of similarities there. So I loved her outsider perspective. She is an ambassador from LaSalle Station, and she is coming to this world in order to take over for the ambassador that was there before her. And she has what's called an imago machine, which essentially implants the like soul of the person who died before her, the ambassador before her, into her head. And so, and this is apparently kind of privileged technology that is not, that the Texicon don't 100% understand. But her predecessor was also very committed, or I should say like fascinated by Texicani culture. And what I loved about it is that you see this outsider perspective. She's considered a barbarian. And in her like journey in this space, she utilizes all of this knowledge that she has learned but hasn't really practiced in this culture. And it's fascinating. It's like, as somebody who has moved to a different country and spoken a different language, I really related a lot to her internal monologue of like, I'm going to do it like this or say it like this or put this emphasis here and hope that like that makes sense, right? Or like you could feel and understand, like you could feel her, like, what's it? Translating inside of her head a little bit. It was fascinating. And I loved that. There's also, there's poetry, there's ciphers in this, there's like spy stuff in this. And I don't know. I just thought that Arkady and Martine did a really great job with this book. And so I started the second one, even though I only needed to read the first one for a book club. So you know me, I never really ever read series. Well, I read them, but I'll read like one and then I'll like fuck off. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Mother May I is the next one that I read. That's a 4-star. I was really craving a book like this, and it really kind of hit the spot. It's a mommy thriller, but it does everything right. And Joshilyn Jackson actually narrates all of these too, and I think she does a great job. Essentially, a woman whose husband is this schmancy fancy lawyer guy. He buggers off to a business trip, and she is taking care of their newborn baby and watching their daughter, and the baby is kidnapped. And in order to get her back, or him back, excuse me, it's baby boy, in order to get him back, she has to do something for the kidnapper. And of course she's going to do it because she wants to get her baby back. And that kind of sets off a chain reaction. And then the end of this book really went a place I didn't expect it to. There's content warnings for sexual assault, sort of rape and drug abuse and lots of stuff going on there, but I loved this book and it makes me want to read more from this author. All right, The Verifiers, 4 stars. I really hope that this is a series. This is written by Jane Peck. This was a Book of the Month book. I hope this is a series. I hope that we get more of these. I hope that this person, this woman, Claudia, I want to read about her biking around New York City. I want to read about her doing her thing so badly, and being this detective, this PI that's super inspired by this crime series. Like, Jane Peck gets what this is and like is very good at executing it, like very good at executing it. I thought she did an incredible job. But the end was a little fast for me. I was like, wait, what happened? So I really hope that this opens up the door for another book. I mean, I might even like add her on Instagram, like, and just be like, yo, we're gonna get another one of these, please. And she's a lawyer. I don't know, like, there's a thing where like people who are lawyers that write books are really good at them. All right, I'm gonna bang through. Wow, I read a lot in April. I read a lot, and I feel like I'm definitely repeating some. I've talked about some of these books already, so I'm trying to be really succinct. All right, Local Woman Missing, gave that 3 stars. This was fine. If you're like in that thrillery mood, if you need like a snack in between other books, this will do that. It's a Law and Order episode, but like a little bit more, I guess. It's a USA like daytime movie. It perfectly fine. There's nothing incredible about this. There's nothing horrible about this. It was the perfect middle of the road 3-star book for me. 3 stars means it was fine. Like, it did what it was supposed to do and I didn't hate it. Yeah, I found the twist to be like, okay, cool. Sounds good. Moving on. Then I read Make Me Disappear, clearly on a thriller kick. This is by Jessica Payne, and I believe it's her debut. I gave this 5 stars. I was nervous about this. She posted about it on a NetGalley Facebook group that I'm in, and I was like, oh, I don't know. But then I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. Why not? You know, she's putting herself out there. I think that's really cool. And I'm glad I did. At first, I thought, so this takes place in Seattle. It's about a woman who is in this abusive relationship. In the very first couple chapters, I was like, what is this? Like, what is going on? It oscillates between when she meets this guy and when she's ready to really get rid of this guy. And she has been in an abusive relationship before, and this one this relationship was very different and sort of crept up on her, but a lot of the red flags came up, and it was kind of cool to see her be like, whoa, this is a red flag. I know better. Like, okay, this changes things, right? And it's a very short relationship. The relationship itself is probably less than a year. Then it was when she went to the perspective of the abuser that I was like, wow, this is fascinating, to get inside of his head. And in some ways, not necessarily have sympathy for him, but to kind of understand that like he himself is suffering, and like the behavior that he's exhibiting in this relationship is like clearly motivated by the like not very healthy relationships that he, you know, was raised in and exposed to. And it was wild. I was really surprised by this. So she decides to be kidnapped. She decides to have herself kidnapped. And I was like, okay, cool. And that's where it really popped off. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, really fun thriller. It takes place in Seattle, which was kind of fun. And she did a good job kind of talking about Seattle, etc. Then I just had a string of kind of cool books. Okay, The Cartographers, Peng Shepard, Book of the Month book. Fantastic, 5 stars. Absolutely love this book. I own a physical copy, but I listened to it on Scribd, and I loved how the narration would change depending upon which character was speaking, which was really fantastic. And the way that was directed, I thought was really well, and not too, sometimes when you have multiple narrators, the director gets a little, extra with how that's sort of performed or introduced, or, you know, and this didn't do that. It was like perfect. It was fun and inventive, but not like over the top, like, okay, buddy, I get it. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the plot of this. Just know that it's about map making, and there's mystery, and the New York Public Library is in it. That's very cool. Loved all of that. I was just totally surprised by where this went. There is a little bit of magical realism, but I don't think it's like enough that if you're like super anti-magical realism, it's going to just, you know, blow your mind or anything. I don't know. Maybe it will. I can't. Your mileage may vary, as I say. All right. Oh my gosh, we're almost... Yeah. Okay, I only have like 4 more. Oh, goodness. Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. People love this book, and I see why. It is a really well-made book, really well-written book. It is heartbreaking on absolutely every level. It is, frankly, hard to read at times. And I just wasn't really here for it the whole way through, and not because it doesn't deserve all of the attention it gets. This isn't a book that I think is being overhyped. If anything, the people that I'm hearing talk about it, I'm not hearing enough people talk about it. I heard about this book through Sarah's Bookshelves Live, and I thought that, you know, her kind of read on it was that it's dark, but that it's really well done, and I would agree with that. But I don't know, for some reason, what it is that I said here, the point of view changes very frequently, and I think it could have benefited from being a bit longer, to allow more time for certain timelines and the people that lived in that. And that's true. Like it's a very short book, and yeah, it just kind of doesn't really, like, I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't super wrap itself up tightly. Yeah, I don't know. I give it 4 stars. The Last House on Needless Street. I heard a lot about this book. It's a horror book. I'm very confused about defining things as horror. And not because this isn't a horror book, but okay. We're going to get into my mind very quickly and just how I work. Maybe it's because like I'm an addict and like I want the thing and I want it. Like I want it right now, and I want that instant gratification. Like, and, you know, I'm working on it, right? Like one day at a time. But this took forever to rev up for me. I was like, if you're a horror novelist, Where's the horror? Where's the, like, all of this slow buildup? Like, just leave it for the birds, man. Like, I am not, it's the same thing with romance. Like, I'm like, if we're not getting to business, like, something, like, I need something, like, to kind of keep me going, like, tease me a little bit, you know? Same thing with my horror, and my romance. It's like, give me a little bit, like, give me a little bit to look forward to. Like, and this took forever to get to that, but once it did, it was awesome. We could have started that process, like, quarter way into the book, third of the way into the book. No, we get it really towards the back end. And like, I do think this is more of a psychological thriller with body horror elements at the end, essentially. So if you like the slow build up, that kind of like, there's multiple POVs in this as well. And I really enjoyed the commentary about mental illness, which I can't really get into without spoiling it. But so I'm not recommending this book, but just be forewarned, like, settle into it, you know, settle into it for a while. Really, like, there's also POVs from a cat, which I thought were kind of cool. Actually, I enjoyed that part a lot. I didn't, normally I'm like, no kids, no animals, but this I liked. I actually did. That was really the thing that kept me going, was the cat parts. And then the end, and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, a lot of build up for an interesting payoff. But yeah. And there's a lot of dread in this. And, like, I love dread, but, like, give me a reason. Like, you know, anyway. Dating Dr. Dill, a romance. This was cute. Okay, everybody's mileage is going to vary on romance. We're all, especially with romance readers, we are all so picky, and it's really just specific to, like, you know, what we're attracted to and the things we kind of like in our romance. This had a decent amount of spice. It could have been spicier because, you know, I'm a total, like, nut for that stuff. You know me, just plot what plot. But my only issue with this is that some of the, like, pillow talk was, like, cringy to me. And the main character, he liked to name his organ, and it had a name, and he would talk about it a lot. And I was like, I don't really care for that. Otherwise, every other aspect of this was great. This is clearly going to be a series, and that's fine. Like, I might check in with it. I don't know. Like, I loved the world that she built. I love the family. I like the family dynamics, and a lot of the community that I'm introduced to. That was really, really cool. This takes place in an Indian community in New Jersey. And that was cool. And, you know, there's, like, a TV show in it, which is fun, and a doctor, and, you know, cringy online dating, and, like, really fun, weird scenes. There's, like, a weird scene where she goes and plays Dungeons and Dragons with this guy. It's just really, really great. So I enjoyed that a lot. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars, and I think that it totally deserves, it's like 3 stars is not bad. 3 stars is, like, solid. Like, I didn't hate it. Yeah, it was good. Then we have the plot. Okay, so this I gave 4 stars. This is a very self-aware book. If you like books about books, if you like books about writing, if you like books that really take the piss out of authors specifically, I think this is good for you. I'm waffly on this. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I really hate it. Like, if anybody's familiar with Sigrid Nunez's The Friend, which I believe won the National Book Award or another book award from 4 or 5 years ago. I fucking hated that book. I really hated it. It really pissed me off. So if you are like a fan of that, then you'll love it. I don't know. The Friend was very much like inside of a writer's mind, and it was super boring. This one is inside of a writer's mind, and I found it to be really pathetic. Like, but in a way, I feel like I was supposed to find this main character to be very pathetic. And essentially it's about a guy who is, he considers himself a failed writer, which I also just think that the fact that he considers himself a failed writer to be so ridiculous. He literally published 2 books, and he's just spending the beginning of this book moping around and feeling sorry for himself. And I'm like, buddy, most of the problems that you have are problems of your own creation, but okay. And so he winds up teaching at this sort of like workshop, and he hears from this guy the best plot ever. And that hinges upon you feeling a certain way about a particular stereotype. And so I thought that at the end of the day, I was like, this isn't that amazing, but not, okay. So throughout this whole book, you don't know the plot. The plot is slowly revealed. And by revealing what that plot is, you understand how this guy came to come up with the plot in the first place and why it's so good, et cetera, et cetera. So this author steals this plot from this guy who dies. This is all like in the, blurb. And then he gets a email from somebody that says, I know you're a thief. And it kind of spirals him out. And so, this whole book, I'm just thinking like, I would have done everything differently if I were you, like everything differently. But I enjoyed that. Like, it was just easy to kind of like, this book is cruise control. Like, you set the speed at 60 and then you just kind of, just watch your mirrors. You know what I mean? Like, that's what this book is. It's just, it's not like the most amazing, crazy, twisty plot. It's more like, oh, okay, cool. That was clever. I liked it. I liked the mystery in it. And I liked how just like stupid this guy was. And yeah, so if that's your thing, and that was everything that I read in April. So, on to the unboxing. So you already saw the spines of these in the background, but maybe, you're watching this on your phone. Hold on. Ugh. I'm sitting on an exercise ball. So yeah, got to keep that core tight, y'all. So yeah, maybe you couldn't see them. Maybe you could, you probably could. Anyway. So for this one, the predictions on the Facebook group were only so good. We got one that was a total surprise. So that first one is Yerba Buena, yeah, by Nina LaCour. I don't know, this just looks cool. When Sarah Foster runs away from home at 16, she leaves behind the girl she once was, capable of trust and intimacy. Years later in Los Angeles, she's a sought-after bartender, renowned as much for her brilliant cocktails as for the mystery that clings to her. Across the city, I think it's Emily, Emilie, Dubois is in a holding pattern, yearning for the beauty and community of her Creole grandparents cultivated but unable to commit. On a whim, she takes a job arranging flowers at the glamorous restaurant Yerba Buena and falls into an affair with the married owner. So that's just the first paragraph of the thing. And I don't know. I don't know why. I like books that take place in LA. It seems like, I don't know, and look, there's like a cocktail here and there's the flowers here. So clearly they're going to come together and something's going to happen. That's cool. I'm into it. Then I also got Breathless, a thriller. This just sounds, I don't know, like perfect for summer. Like all of these books, May is essentially the beginning of summer reading. Don't let anybody tell you different. And this just seems super that. Journalist Cecily Wong is in over her head. She's come to Manaslu, Manaslu, the 8th highest peak in the world, to interview internationally famous mountaineer Charles McVeigh on the last leg of a record-breaking series of summits. She's given up everything for this story, her boyfriend, her life savings, the peace she's made with her climbing failures in the past. But it's a career-making opportunity. It could finally put her life back on track. And then, of course, someone dies and shit hits the fan. So I love books about outdoor stuff. Like, I think that's awesome. Like, I would also watch this movie. So, I'm excited to read this. I think this will be really rad. Let's see. Then, of course, I got Book of Night, like everybody else. Everybody else is getting like all the pretty covers of this. If you're not familiar with Book of Night, it's Holly Black's first adult fantasy. And people are hot to trot on this bad boy. I don't know anything about what it's about. I'm actually not going to read the plot because I'm just going to go in completely blind. What we love a short fantasy. We love a short fantasy book. It sounds like that's what adult fantasy means, is that you don't spend a lot of time world dumping. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. So yeah, we're going to see what this is about, and I'll let you know if I liked it. When there is this much heat around a book, I'm always like FOMO, but also critical, right? Because, so she's known for like YA, and yeah, I'm curious. We will live to check it out. This one, okay, this is like my thing. Like this is like when I wasn't gonna get this book, and then I was like pawing through all the different options, and I was like, this is like so something I would read. It's called Take My Hand, and this is by Dolan Perkins Valdez, and it is a historical fiction about two nurses. So Montgomery, Alabama, 1973. Oof. Fresh out of nursing school, Sybil Townsend intends to make a difference, especially in her African-American community. At the Montgomery Family Planning Clinic, she hopes to help women shape their destinies and make their own choices for their lives and bodies. Still pretty prescient, wouldn't we say? Or pretty relevant, I should say. Yeah. But when her first week on the job takes her along a dusty country road to a worn-down one-room cabin, Sybil is shocked to learn that her new patients, Erika and India, are children, just 11 and 13 years old. Neither of the Williams sisters have even kissed a boy, but they are poor and black, and for those handling the family's welfare benefits, that's reason enough to have the girls on birth control. As Sybil grapples with her role, she takes India, Erika, and their family into her heart until one day she arrives at their door to learn the unthinkable has happened, and nothing will ever be the same for any of them. So, historical fiction, specifically female-led story, feminism, like this is, I'm going to read the shit out of this. How could I say no? All right, then we have Darling Girl, and this is by Liz Mikalski. Sorry, I should have looked it up. This is a retelling of J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, so which I think you could take in so many different places. If people know the story of Peter Pan and sort of other interpretations of it, it's gone in many different directions. The idea of like the boy who never grows up and the sort of escaping into one's own fantasy land, etc. There's also this, I think, a commentary on like with the Lost Boys about what happens when kids are kind of left to their own devices and the freedom, but also fear within a lot of that, I think is interesting. And I don't know. I think this will be fascinating. I don't know what her take is on this. Life is looking up for Holly Darling, granddaughter of Wendy. Yes, that Wendy. She's running a successful skincare company. And her son, Jack, is happy and healthy. And the tragedy of her past is well behind her until she gets a call that her daughter, Eden, who has been in a coma for nearly a decade, has gone missing from the estate where she's been long tucked away. And worst of all, Holly knows who must be responsible. Peter Pan, who is not only very real, but very dangerous. Oh, this will be great. I can't wait. And again, not super, like, we don't have big chunky books this month. I'm into it. It's going to be great. Then this last one, I could not say no to this. I love Hollywood books, old Hollywood books. So this is Siren Queen, and this is by, I think it's pronounced Nivo, but I could be wrong. Could be Eng. I should have looked it up before, and I apologize, and I'm sure somebody will correct me in the pronunciation in the comments, and I appreciate you because I should have looked it up. But yeah, this author actually wrote a retelling of The Great Gatsby, which I really should read, but I've been sort of on the fence because I've heard things. So I've heard mixed reviews, but usually if it's like a mixed review, then I tend to be on the I love a controversial book, or not controversial, but like one that most people didn't like, but it all depends. This is about it's by Luli Wei, who is a beautiful, talented, and desperate to be a star, coming of age in pre-code Hollywood. So this is pre the Haze Code, and the Haze Code was something that was created by Hollywood before the government would get involved and regulate what was decent to be put on screen. So Hollywood decided to make up their own thing called the Haze Code. And the Haze Code is actually responsible for a lot of the really messed up tropes that we see even in Hollywood to this day, even though the Haze Code doesn't exist anymore. So things that were against the Haze Code, you could not have a interracial relationship on screen because of anti-miscegenation laws. There was, and this included, this is really messed up and actually relevant. This is a real thing that happened. There was an adaptation of Pearl S. Buck's The Good Earth. And in that, it's a story that takes place in China. But of course they had white actors that, and they cast specifically a white man in yellowface to play the lead male role in that book, or in that film. And because of that, they refused to hire Anna May Wong to be in the lead female role because it would have been illegal, right? Which is just like, what? So messed up. And so instead they hired a female actress and put her in yellowface. Because Hollywood. But other things, so if a woman was to express interest or desire in sex, or was to have sex, she would be killed, right? Or something terrible would happen to her. Essentially, there would be some sort of moral thing that would come across, come down upon her. So a lot of like Elizabeth Taylor's roles, like especially when she, some of the meatier, kind of more like emotional, deep roles, they would end with like her character dying or something terrible happening because like it has to happen to her because she liked sex and she liked, acting like a man, which is really messed up. So those are just some small examples of things that the Haze Code enacted. But yeah, it's really fascinating. So I'm like into that kind of shit. Obviously, I like the history of Hollywood. Not because I think that it's a good thing. I think it's a really fascinating thing. And it's a look at, it's interesting to see the impact that it has had on our culture to this day, and things that we, like the fact that we are still struggling for representation of a variety of different people, of different backgrounds, races, ethnic backgrounds, LGBTQIA, all of that. Like we still struggle to get that representation filled by actors that are from those communities, I think very much directly because of the Haze Code. So that's good. That's going to be fantastic. All right. I've yammered enough. I hope you enjoyed that, my breakdown of April and my unboxing of the May books. I probably won't read all of these this month. I don't know. I mean, it's May 9th now, so we'll see. You can follow me on Instagram, and I'm going to be doing some other stuff soon, but I can't really announce any of that. And I want to shout out a few things that I also just love and just want to say thanks to Books and Bops. Their server is amazing, and I love it. And the Discord server that they have, I have so much fun with y'all. And I just love reading books and chatting about books with you guys. Also, the Book Talk, etc. podcast. Please become a patron of that. It's fantastic. Become patron of both these Books and Bops and Book Talk, etc. I'm going to link them below. I've also recently found one called Mr. Francie, which has been amazing, and I love doing reading sprints. I'm really into reading sprints. Really helps me read a lot, so I might try to do something like that in the future, but we'll see. In the meantime, thank you for spending your time with me. Share this with your bookie friends, and I'll see your faces later. Bye.